form, which will be the candidate form. And if I can have all the candidates come up and take their seats at their designated spots. Alice is going to send out a basket. And Alice, are there cards on each table?
Cards on each table. If you need more, raise your hands to write questions.
Write in the question, and then Alice will come by and pick them up. Now, many of you know my position on the utility issue already. For the last 4 or 5 years, Dr. Parity and I have been fighting pretty hard for this. So, anyway, in any case, many of you know that I've been very supportive of the sale to FP&L, and I'm openly endorsing 3 candidates. In fact, I'm a treasurer for one of them. So, in that spirit of neutrality, I have elected not to moderate this forum, and we're going to give that to our former mayor, Mary Beth McDonald. So enjoy the forum, and I'll be reviewing the forum.
Thank you, Glenn. Can you all hear me? He's taller than I am. All right. I'm going to ask each candidate to give a 2-minute introduction about themselves. And we'll just start from left to right, my right to left. And that'll be 2 minutes each. And then we have a timer, Debbie, who will raise her hand when your 2 minutes are up. And then we'll go on to our questions. Dan, start.
Already. Okay. Thank you, Mary Beth, and thank you for the Taxpayers Association for having this forum. Thank you for all the attendees showing up. I am running for Vero Beach City Council. My primary reason, which I believe is the main issue in this election, is the sale of the city electric system. I've been in favor of that for 3 years. I'm in favor of it because I want to bring the rates down to the residents in the city of Vero Beach who are presently on the system. It's not fair that they have to pay higher rates than those ratepayers who are fortunate enough to be on the system of FP&L. And I want to sell the system because it gives us a chance to secure the financial future of Vero Beach. Right now, the expense, the annual maintenance cost of our electric system in the city is just not maintainable in the future. We cannot go on paying these excessive costs. And when we sell the system, as I believe it's going to be sold eventually, it will give the city leaders a chance to really analyze what the needs are, what are the essential services that the city of Vero Beach must provide to its residents, and we can do that through input by the residents. As a little bit of a background by myself, I have been living in Vero Beach now for 7 years. I work in Vero Beach on the island. I'm an attorney, private practice. I'm from Lansing, Michigan. Born, raised, and educated up there. And I love this town. I will devote my entire energy to serving your best interests. And if I'm elected, I will not violate your public trust. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it without reservation. I want to thank you all for your attention.
Good afternoon, everyone. 2 years ago, I stood before you on a platform based asking for fiscal responsibility, selling the electric utility, reducing the size of government, and revising our employee benefits. And I'm glad to say after 2 years, we've really made some progress. We have a new management team with Jim O'Connor, finance director, human resources, and police chief. We now have performance appraisals at City Hall, something absolutely new. They will be accountable for what their performance is. We have eliminated the banking of sick time and vacation pay with the use it or lose it for non-union employees. We have bid out our health care services, resulting in a $600,000 savings. And we reduced the size of government by 5%, eliminating 26 positions. 2 years ago, we sat down with FP&L and signed a letter of intent. We now have a way out of our contracts with FMPA and with OUC. This could not be done without the assistance of FPL. We are now on the threshold of a major economic opportunity in our city. Let's secure the financial future. Move forward with the sale to FP&L, bringing the lowest electric rates in the state to our community from the most efficient producer. Why pay retail rates for electricity when we can buy wholesale? It's as simple as that. It's time for the city government to get out of the electric utility business. The utility transfer for years masked the cost of our government. We had 550 employees for the city of Vero Beach, and unsustainable employee benefits were negotiated. But they never had to come to the taxpayers and ask you to pay for this. With the sale, our government will be more transparent. You'll have a clear view of what your government costs and what you want to pay for. I'm out. Thank you very much. Please vote for Turner, proven leadership and commitment to the community.
Most of you know that I was born here in Vero Beach. My family moved here just after 1900. They've all been service involved. My father, mayor, my brother, county commissioner, myself, the mayor of Corrales de Lis. It's a genetic defect in the family, I admit it. After 50, you get into politics, you know? And I'm going to echo what Pilar said here. You know, 2 years ago, when she and I ran, people came up to us and we told them that we were going to sell the electric utilities, and they said it can't be done. That it will never happen. We have today, well yesterday at the Utilities Commission, we went through 3 more of the contracts that are coming from Florida Power and Light, OUC, and FMPA. We are moving forward. Let me tell you, there are a few times in your life, whether it's personally or whether it's in a corporate sense, that a door opens for you. A door of opportunity has opened for us. A huge, huge door of opportunity. We cannot afford to let this door slip and close and not be able to make this sale. We have, and it's just so important that people understand this. I keep repeating this, but we have a plant that is a half a century old. None of you people would be in business if you didn't update your system over a half a century profile. You just simply would not be in business. We cannot let this opportunity pass by. It's not going to come again anytime soon. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Karen Hajra, and I've never met most of you people, and I'm glad to be of your acquaintance today. I am 110% for the sale of the electric. But I don't think it's up to just 5 people on city council. I think the referendum is a good idea. I know it's costly, and it might not be the best choice, but I really think here in America we do agree with democracy. And to find out for 100%, 10% sure that that's what the citizens of this city want. And if so, yes, we do need to proceed with the sale. This is all a learning step for me, and by stating that information, I think I've enlightened you that I'll be happy with any of the choices for city council that are made. I think all these people would make a great choice, and I can't deny that. I know there's differences, but the government shouldn't be ruled by 5 people. It should be by the people that we are serving, and we are servants, not rulers. So with that in mind, I just hope that the referendum goes through and that the city electric indeed is sold, so progress can be made. And the government that is here in New River County can continue to do what it's been doing best, and that is serving the citizens of Vero Beach. Thank you.
In 2009, I addressed the Taxpayers Association, and I looked down the table and I Said, you know, I said, the real question is, are you ready for Hetty? And the real question for the incumbents is you need to ask them whether they ever read the contract, because they have not. Your president, Mr. Glenn Herron, shook his head. He knew that could not be true. He stood up and he looked at the candidates. Surely Mr. Hetty must be wrong. Someone on city council tell me, yes, you did. You read the contract. Somebody tell me that. And the answer was, nope. No, hadn't bothered to read the contract. And that started a groundswell of concern by the taxpayers and by the voters, and they voted me into office. I made a recommendation, I made a motion that we invite FP&L to the table. At first I couldn't get a second to that motion. And then I had Charlie Wilson make the motion. I did second the motion. FP&L is here, and the rest is almost history. Almost, because it's not a done and final deal. Most of the documents, however, to seal this, to cast this in concrete, have either been signed or will be signed on October 16th. It's a done deal. And now what we need is we need people on the council that are willing to look at the documents, to look at the contracts, to understand what it is that we're agreeing to, and what it is we need to do, what we don't have to do. We need people on the council that will not shut up public comment, that will treat the public with respect, and will explore everything that has to do with this sale.
Good afternoon, I'm Jay Kramer. I want to say thank you to the Taxpayers Association for having us and sponsoring this event. What I'd like to do is just kind of bring everybody up to date as to what has transpired in the last 2 years. Prior to the election, would like everybody to know that on August 30th, before the election, I did propose a partial sale and got elected from that position. And then 2 months later, after the election, I did present that to council. Now from there on, I want to make it clear that my position all along has been getting the rates down. Everything else is really fluff. We've got to get the rates down, and I have presented many different ways of doing that. After the partial sale didn't get any traction, I then went and looked at maybe getting the power plant off the river. The power plant represents a very huge expense in our power bills. I talked with 2 companies, ACES, Energy Marketing, and Sam Dokes from Jacksonville Utility Authority, to get that power plant into somebody else's name so that they could use it. It would relieve us of nearly $8 to $10 million of expenses. That idea met with quite a lot of resistance from the city manager. It got dropped. We then looked at the tie line, which I do have the engineering drawings from that. Worked with FMPA on that, with their engineers, Sam Grillo, or Nick Grillo, and Tom Reedy. And the engineer said that our whole system could run through that tie line. We can get rid of the power plant at any time. I've even talked with OUC about that. They're interested in selling power, not running a power plant. Man, time just goes by quick, sorry.
You got 30 seconds.
But in any case, you know, I have worked on several different ways to get our rates down and to get it down, and none of them really do interfere with the sale of FP&L. You can still get the power plant off the river and then sell it to FP&L afterwards. I don't have a problem with it. They produce a plan that gets the power plant off the river. I would have done it last year. I want the power plant off the river, I want our rates down, and that is my primary concern. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Oh, sorry. Hello everyone. Nick Thomas. I'm going to try and read this in less than 2 minutes. My name is Nick Thomas and I'm running for a seat on the Vero Beach City Council. As many of you now understand, the proposed sale of Vero Beach Electric to Florida Power and Light is the central issue facing the next council, so I want to make my views as clear as possible. I am personally opposed to the sale of FPL. For the reasons I'll set forth below, I'm convinced it's a terrible deal for the city of Vero Beach, and for individual customers, there's simply no guarantee that FPL will be able or willing to offer lower rates than Vero Electric over the long term. Please understand that I am in favor of the referendum. I believe that if the citizens of Vero Beach understand the true nature of this deal, they will vote it down without delay. Now, with regard to the impact of the sale on the city, we know that we will have approximately $4 million less in our city budget every year going forward. That will mean a reduction in police protection, drastic cuts to city services, and/or a substantial rise in city property taxes. None of these are good things. But there is also the very real possibility that, after realizing that it cannot cut the $4 million out of the budget, the city of Vero Beach will simply declare bankruptcy, and 87 years of work and hope and planning by our forebearers will end in a whimper. I cannot stand by and watch that happen without at least trying to get the word out. With regard to the promised savings to FP&L ratepayers, 2 points. One, FP&L is already in the process of seeking rate increases from the Florida Department of Public Service Commission. Second, because approximately half of the bill paid by FP&L customers is based on the cost of fuel, mostly natural gas, FP&L cannot even pretend that it has control over the rates that it charges. Due to the serious environmental concerns regarding fracking, air and water pollution, there is every chance that the federal government will begin limiting that practice. The state of New York already has. Add to that the fact that the U.S. is planning to become a net exporter of liquefied natural gas starting in 2015, and there's every chance that the price of FPL is charged for natural gas will rise to the levels paid in other parts of the world, which is much higher. Almost done. Once we have this FP&L situation behind us and we are no longer paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to transactional attorneys and consultants, I propose that we turn our attention back to running our city in the way it's traditionally been run. Low property taxes combined with high level of public service, respect for our public servants and our environment, and a firm resolve to maintain the quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take this microphone out of here because I'm going to ask questions of each of the candidates. The first, and then we're going to open it up to the public. You will find on your tables index cards like this. If any of you have any questions that you would like to pose to the candidates, please write them and hand them to me, and I'll be happy to pose those questions. Candidates, this is a yes or no answer, and you can't expound any further than that. No, it's just yes or no. And this is just the first question. Based on all known information, including the final term sheet, the memorandum of understanding, and over 4 years of public debate on the issue, do you support the sale of the City of Vero Beach Electric to FP&L? Yes or no?
Yes. Can everybody hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Double yes.
Yes or no, Mr. Huddy?
I support the sale, but I don't.
Yes or no, Mr. Huddy? Yes. Yes or no, Mr. Huddy? I will assume that's a no.
No, it's not a no. It's,
It's-
I think
if the answer is-
the terms are.
The answer is yes or no. If it's not a yes, then we have to say it's a no. Okay, Mr. Kramer, yes or no?
The information is not in, I decline to answer.
All right, I will assume that there may be 3 no's. All right, the second question here. Do you support, and you will have 1 minute to answer this. Do you support converting the city pension system to a defined contribution plan? Or I'll just hand the mic.
Yes, I do support converting the city's employees' pension plan from defined benefit to defined contribution. The city cannot go on maintaining this defined benefit plan. Most Fortune 500 companies are also changing their plans to get down to a defined contribution plan, and the city of Vero Beach should follow that direction.
I certainly am in favor of converting this plan to a, what I call a pay-as-you-go defined contribution. We have a $40 million unfunded liability for our pension that's continuing to grow, despite the fact that we pay an extra $3 million every year into that fund. Because our pension fund's based on a 7.75 return on investment. When's the last time y'all had that? It's now 0.32 is the return we received last year. It's time to get rid of this plan.
Yes, I also support closing this plan out, capping it, and starting a new plan. These two issues are joined at the hip. If you sell to Florida Power and Light, the funds that we get from Florida Power and Light can go directly into the benefits program. We can cap that program. If you do not sell to Florida Power and Light, we don't get to cap that program. The $3 million, million that we pay annually into that will have to be increased by twofold at least to catch up with the unfunded benefits, and that'll take another 15 to 20 years to even do that. The two are connected at the hip. One goes with the other.
All right.
Well, after listening to Craig Fletcher speak so eloquently explaining this, I have no choice but to agree with him that it should be redone.
Council members willing to say yes or no without details what got us into trouble with an OUC contract that is set to cost us $20 million in penalties. You need council members that cannot be bullied into just voting yes or no without knowing what the hell it is they're voting on. Council members willing to say yes or no without knowing the details of what got us into a mess where we have pension plans that are totally underfunded, and that needs to stop. Council members that are willing just to say yes or no without knowing the details have gotten us into situations where we just need to do something. And one of the things that we need to do is we need to turn around the underfunded pension plans. We need to have a defined contribution, not a defined benefit.
I would definitely agree with the philosophy of a defined contribution. We really do need to shift the risk of these pension funds back to the individuals who benefit from those pension funds. Quite frankly, the employees, although we like to see them have good retirements, just not off of our backs. The idea of having a 7.5% return on these funds just doesn't ring true to what the market is. That risk right now is being borne by you. It should be borne by them. So going to a defined contribution, I would fully support the philosophy of that going forward. I'd like to see what the numbers are. You got to keep in mind that the more you cut employees back, the less money you have going into these funds, and possibly the more taxes might have to be raised in order to balance the funds that were already out there. You can't get rid of the pensions for the retirees. All you do is retire that fund and you start a new one for the defined contribution. But in philosophy, yes, I like the defined contribution.
This is a very hot mic. I'm generally in favor of pay-as-you-go for everything. I am agnostic on whether it's on defined contribution versus defined benefit. Both cost money. I've heard no evidence that one is cheaper than the other on a pay-as-you-go basis. One way or another, we need to catch up with our debt and then move forward and pay as you go. One, I'll just keep it then. Oh,
well, I have to ask you the question.
That's okay.
And I'll give you the answer. Do you support asking city employees to make higher contributions to their health insurance premiums?
Yes, I do support that proposal. I think it's only fair for city employees to have the same responsibility for their health insurance costs that the employees in the private sector have to pay. And I think Vero Beach is doing a good job now in following the direction of the city manager and going in this direction.
I would agree. We have made some revisions in our health care. We still have some restrictions in our union contracts of what we can provide and within what limits, and those needs to be reviewed further.
Yeah, we're restricted what we do now by the union contracts, and it's going to be a negotiation point that the city manager well understands that we have insisted on that they start increasing their input to those plans.
Well, it just sounds like to me increasing their plans is just the logical thing to do because of inflation and the way things are in the world. And I think that the employees will not be thrilled about it, but understand because everything else is going up as well.
City council needs to decide what it is that they can pay for a health program, a health plan. And then there needs to be available to employees a cafeteria, a choice of which plans they want, with one plan being paid for by the city, and if they want more, then and the greater the plan, the ever increasing contribution that they have to make for their plan.
I'm glad to say that this year we did redo our health care plan. I believe we saved about $600,000 by renegotiating a plan. The employees really do need to get an idea that they have to bear part of the market risk out there. The city of Vero Beach really does not control the price of health care. And part of that risk out there needs to be borne by the employee. We can give the employee a base on the health care, but any of the luxurious plans that are above that, any of the expenses above that, the employee needs to be cognitive of those expenses, and they probably need to pay for that themselves.
I generally agree with that. I think that we are moving, well, I'm arguing inside my own head. No, I guess my answer really is no, I don't support making them pay more. It's part of what we do when we employ them. If it gets where we can't provide it, I guess we just send them out in the open market.
All right, this is a toughie for you all to stay within your 1-minute answers, I'm sure, but I ask that you do. Hypothetically, if the City of Vero Beach General Fund had a $3 million shortfall due to the elimination of the electric fund transfer, how would you propose to handle this?
Sorry. Well, I don't think the question is all that difficult. If we do have a revenue shortfall initially after the sale of the system, I think this is an area where outsourcing becomes a benefit to the City of Vero Beach. I'm in favor of outsourcing where it can be done. For one reason, it does relieve the city budget in salary-related issues of pension obligations and health insurance costs that we have all discussed just recently and that we all want to change. Also, outsourcing benefits the business community, which I think the City Council has an obligation to do to improve the city, to improve the business climate as much as possible, and I think outsourcing is a step in that direction.
The $3 million deficit, I think, could be addressed in many ways. First of all, I think we still need to be looking at cost cutting and efficiency and demanding performance-based management of our city. The revision of our pension plan to a defined contribution could result in $3 million savings in itself. Further revision of employee benefits, elimination of triple overtime, use it or lose it, taking that to union employees, that was a $2.8 million liability. All of these types of things I think will result in sufficient savings.
The last number I heard on the shortfall was 3.4. And yeah, we have many ways we can solve this. Two finance meeting two months ago, no, a month or so ago, the finance committee came to us at the City Council with a list of changes that we could pick and choose from to lower the shortfall, or to make up for the shortfall. And there's always, nobody wants to hear this, but it's going to be a blend of some of those and maybe a little bit of, a very small bit of ad valorem tax increase. But there is a method, there is a methodology. We do have a plan in place to do that.
Wow, it seems like it's not really a hypothetical question for some of these people. That's great. For me, it's totally hypothetical. What I would do is go line by line of the current expenditures and trim them. If that meant cutting my pay if I were to be elected, so be it. I think a lot of the high expenditures that they're already taking, like the police advertisement fund, stuff like that, could be probably trimmed down or cut out completely. If anyone were to do a line by line in any type of budget, that's really the best way to go, is just do a little bit of trimming here and there, and I believe that would help a lot with the $3 million deficit.
Assuming there's a deficit at all, but if we had FP&L rates, we would save more on our electric bills than we would pay if we doubled the ad valorem tax. But I think that the reality is that there probably are savings that we could put into effect in relatively short order that would make up for a $3 million deficit. And then if we couldn't, it's really pretty simple. The residents, the taxpayers of the city, need to decide whether or not they want the current level of service, and if they do, then we increase the tax. But even an increase in tax, if we doubled the tax, people look at the bottom line tax bill and think that means their total ad valorem tax is going to go up. It's not. It's the city portion, which is maybe, what, 10–15% of your total tax bill.
Well, let's keep in mind, I mean, right now it's $3 million. After the lease of the power plant comes up and the payment in lieu of taxes comes due, that $3 million turns into $4.5. Certainly there are things that we can do to save money. I do like the idea of paying up the pensions and going forward with that. Some of the individuals that I've talked to on that say the savings would be about $900,000 to $1 million, although we really do need to hear back from our actuarial people on this to really see what the numbers really are. Keep in mind that the City of Sebastian's budget is about $23 million. Ours is $19.5. We have cut down quite a bit. We've cut down almost a quarter of our employees. We're getting down there. We're getting down to the point where we're going to have to start asking people, what do you want to cut? What services can you do without? And how do you want your city to be? Coming up with $4.5 million is going to be a real tough order, especially if you don't want to touch police, if you don't want to touch the Parks and Recreation. That starts to be a real problem, because now you're going to be cut deeper and deeper into essential services. I am in favor of a referendum, which will then ask the people if they want to have their taxes raised in order to support this. I am fully in favor of making sure that people know what the numbers are going to be before we jump forward with this.
2 quick points. Pardon me. I'm obviously the candidate that doesn't want to make these hard choices of cutting $4.5 million or $3.4 million from the budget. I don't think it's there. I don't think we can do it. And I think I've been very clear. I don't want to do this deal, so I don't want to have to face that question. But the thing to notice is we've just talked about 6 candidates. Not one person said a specific thing that they want to cut. They did workarounds, they talked about what might happen or might not happen. We need to hear actual things. We are going to, put the policemen on motorcycles. We're going to do, we've got to talk about the real stuff here. $4.5 million every year is a lot of money. We got to cut masses and masses of things, and nobody's willing to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it either, because I don't want to make the cuts.
This is the last question that we have from the Board of the Taxpayers, and then I'll go to questions. If you would write them down on the index card and pass them forward. I only have one so far. The last question asks the City Council candidates, what is your position on outsourcing work to contractors versus using city employees?
Well, at the risk of being repetitive, I think I gave my answer to the prior question. I am in favor of outsourcing, basically for 2 reasons. It does help the city of Vero Beach in doing its budgeting with salary-related issues, such as pension and health insurance costs. And I think even more importantly, it does help the business community. So in those areas where it is not crucial for the city government of Vero Beach to do the work, then we should outsource it if there's any chance of doing it, and if we can find a competent business to do it.
I certainly believe there's some opportunities for us to look at outsourcing as opposed to carrying over 400 employees on our city rolls, paying 70% in benefits to those employees. I mean, we have a 3-man sign department at City Hall. I don't know how many signs we would need to keep 3 men busy for 40 hours a week, but that's what we have. We have a 7-man surveying team. I don't know how much, in 11 square miles in the city of Vero Beach, I don't know how you support 11 people for 40 hours a day, 40 hours a week. These are the kinds of services that we can go out. A garage that we have for our fleet maintenance. Why not use Enterprise and let them take care of our vehicles? These are a lot of things that we can go look at for savings.
Yeah, what she said. This current city council has already outsourced some issues. The laboratory at the water department has been outsourced. I forget how many millions of dollars a year that's saving us. The other one that I've asked the city manager to look into was the garbage collection. I don't know why we need to be in the garbage business when we can get it outsourced. Waste management does it here locally, and the county does it some places. It's a second look at a real possibility. Overall, yes, we need to get all the outsourcing we possibly can.
Hi, I'm 110% against outsourcing, but after listening to Mrs. Turner and Mr. Fletcher and Mr. Stump, I see there could be some validity in it. But like I said, I'm against it. I think the young people here that come out of the colleges, go off to college and come out home, need to have jobs waiting for them here in our city. I think that'll just keep the money in the city and keep the people continuing with the our funds that are through the city, within the city. Using the county as outsource, I really think that wouldn't be against anything, I believe, but to go out of state or out of town to outsource to other companies rather than here using our local companies, I disagree with.
If it's an essential government service, then government should provide it. If it's not an essential government service, government shouldn't be in the business in the first place. Get out. Government should provide essential services, and the government is into services that they shouldn't be in, and they don't need to outsource it. They just need to get out of business.
I am fully in favor of outsourcing. I don't think government should be this bastion where people hide from competition. Certainly we have the ability to look at our different departments, look at our different functions, and compare them to a marketplace, and always be able to have a good check as to whether we are really efficient or not. We do have some departments, like our solid waste department, that is efficient and that does compete. I would really like to make sure that a lot of our departments do have that type of comparison so that we have the confidence of knowing whether we are efficient and competitive. As Craig had said, we have already outsourced. A number of us council members who like the outsourcing, we have the ability to put that on the agenda at any time. I would certainly hope that we would go forward and look at the different areas where we could look out for outsourcing and prove whether we are truly efficient or prove whether we really do need to outsource those functions.
I am not against outsourcing per se, but I go with the proposition that if there's a given job to be done, government should be able to do it as well as private industry, because we, the government, don't have to pursue profit, and we're working in a untaxed situation. What I oppose about outsourcing is two things. One, it can often be code for, let's take a job that's done by somebody getting a living wage and dump it on a company that's willing to pay a person minimum wage. So I think we should be intellectually honest as a government and say, if we want this job to be done by somebody making $8 an hour, let's just offer $8 an hour for the job. That's fine, thanks.
All right, these are questions that the audience members have passed up here. This is directly for Jay Kramer. Jay, please tell us about your experience and duties with the Justice Department in Washington, D.C.
Well, it wasn't in Washington, D.C. It was in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Northern District Court, federal bankruptcy. My responsibilities were, when a bankruptcy got handed down, I was the trustee's agent. I was the individual that came in, locked the doors, secured all the assets, and then prepared them for sale. Interestingly enough, the cases that I got, majority were called an operating 7, where you had a change from debtor in possession to creditor in possession. My job was then to come into a business, keep it operating, turn it around, keep it afloat, and then to put it back out onto the market and sell it to the highest bidder.
Thank you. The next question is for Nick. It says, Nick, you say you oppose the FP&L sale due to the fact that FP&L's rates will rise. How do you correlate that to City of Vero Beach's rates that you say will not rise?
No, I don't think, I don't have any way of knowing that the City of Vero Beach rates won't rise as well. The point I'm trying to make is that we have, when you compare the two utilities, one is more coal-oriented, one is more natural gas-oriented. So I began, because I'm a securities attorney by trade, I tend to look at things from a stock, from a securities point of view. My best impression is that, I'll try and be quick as I can. My best impression is that coal is a more stable source of energy. It's been vetted environmentally. Scrubbers, to the extent they do good things, are already in. We have a long history with coal, and we could probably depend on coal for, a generation at least. On the other hand, natural gas is in its infancy with regard to the way it's being produced right now. Fracking, you've heard about it on TV. I don't know, should I shut up because my time's up? Okay.
All right, some questions would be reiterated here because the council members have already spoken to them. So if I don't read those questions, it's because they've already answered those questions adequately. I have another question here. The sale of the Vero Beach utilities is one of the most important issues in 50 years. Are you in favor or opposed to the citizens having a voice by way of a referendum?
Well, I've listened carefully to the city attorney for Vero Beach, and he's given a very good, clear, concise opinion that there is no requirement for the city to have a public referendum to sell the system. So, as an attorney, and I believe in the rule of law, I would follow that. I'm also aware that, at least it's my understanding, that if the residents of the city of Vero Beach feel strongly enough that they want to petition the government, the petition process is part of our American legal system. If they want to petition to have a referendum and they secure enough signatures on their petition that are valid, of course we would have to have a referendum. Personally, I do not see the need to have a referendum on the sale. When you analyze, you're all, as I look at you, I know you out there, you're informed voters, you pay attention to community affairs. You know what has taken place in the last elections. Those candidates for city council who are strongly in favor of selling the system have won. Those who have opposed the sale have lost. So consider that.
As far as a referendum goes, certainly if one's legally required, we will have a referendum. But at this point in time, I don't feel that we have any legal requirement. My problem with the referendum is the same as we're looking with amendments today. You have a referendum that can be limited to 75 words, can address only one issue. So what will that referendum say? Yes or no to the sale? We have an election every year in Vero Beach. Clearly you have a chance to express your opinion and your vote on it. When you're looking at amendments, we were asked how many people have read what was there, you know what the implications are. How many people are going to read a 200-page plus contract and understand those intricacies? I mean, it's certainly incumbent on the council to present the deal forward to you, to give you the details of what the costs are, what plans we have. But every year, when you vote for a councilwoman, you can change the direction of your council. I can say, let's save the funds that we're getting from the sale and use it for something. And the next year it could be overturned. So it's up to you, the voters, on an annual basis.
I'm going to oppose any referendum until we get a contract that defines what in the world it's going to be all about. Every time we have a change in something that comes up, they want another referendum. However, once we get a contract in hand, I have no problem with a referendum whatsoever.
I'm 100% for the referendum. I do not think the legalities of it is a good criteria to have a referendum or not. Obviously, there's no legal purpose for it. It's just for simply finding out for 100% sure, rather than to be safe than sorry, what the citizens of this city want.
When I served on city council, I pushed very hard to have a referendum, and at the time we told the residents that this was not a referendum on the final sale, and that when that day came they would have a choice. I think that those that tell you we've already had referendums are just not being intellectually honest. That's not true. We have not had a referendum on the sale. And you also hear over and over again that we have a referendum and people vote into or out of office. This gentleman over here beat me in the last election, and I was clearly portrayed as for the sale, and he was not portrayed that way at all. So I would argue that the voters said, hold on a minute, let's take a look at the sale. And that's what he's done in his term in office, is said, hold on a minute, let's look at the details. So to say that the voters have decided already is just not accurate.
I would definitely say I'm in favor of the referendum. Quite frankly, when you look at all of the numbers, there's going to be some people that benefit quite greatly, and there's going to be some people that do not benefit from this. It's quite a divisive issue across Vero Beach. Politically, it's a good move to have a referendum. It does get the true will of the people. Let's have the referendum. Let's avoid lawsuits. We get the referendum done. It's the quickest way to get this deal done.
Just briefly, I'm very much in favor of referendum, and moreover, when I'm on the council, I want to make sure that it's fully and fairly states the proposition before the people.
I have one final question here from these questions. Would you be in favor of asking the city manager to enter into negotiations with the county to establish a regional water sewer district with the objective of closing the city's treatment plant on 17th Street? Mr. Fletcher extends his apologies. He had an appointment at 1:30.
Well, I think that's an issue that needs to be studied a little bit in detail. It's my understanding that the City Council has just recently voted against that. They have voted against regionalization. Probably will be revisited in the future. And I think if it is revisited in the future, it will probably be considered in this context. If the sale goes through, and we do have a shortfall in revenue, and if after analyzing all the possible expenditure cuts, the employee, the level of employees, if we have to look further, that might be an area where we have to do an analysis. Right now, as I go around the city talking with voters, I'm not hearing any complaints about the city's water and sewer system. I'm hearing complaints about the high rates that they have to pay into the city's electric service. So getting back to outsourcing, I think we ought to outsource our electric plant.
I certainly am in favor in exploring areas of regionalization for water and sewer. in order to get the waste treatment plant off the river, the only alternatives we would have is for the city to build another waste treatment plant or to partner with the county. Obviously, when the county has excess capacity, it certainly would make more sense for us to work out an arrangement with the county to get the waste treatment plant off the river.
It definitely seems like an issue that needs a little more study and facts presented. Like Mr. Stump said, I too haven't heard any complaints about our current water and sewer systems. And the people that are currently employed there, I think that this would be something that would directly affect them more than the rest of the citizens.
If different governing authorities can look at anything that government provides and find ways to make it more cost efficient, then certainly we should look at those things. I think that what you've seen in the past with water and sewers, you've seen an attempt at a hostile takeover, and I think that that's offensive when we have one governing authority trying to come in and exercise a hostile takeover from another governing authority.
You know, I would not argue with the idea that land out there on the river could be put to a higher use than a water sewage treatment plant. You know, having to look at that thing every day going across that bridge is probably not the best thing in the world, and you could probably put something there that is quite a bit more useful. I have talked with professional engineers on what we can do with that system. When we put in the deep well injection that goes up to the airport, we did create that pipe large enough to transport all of the sewage up there if we need. The water and sewer system is quite profitable, and if we would like to put a new system up there at the airport, cost is about $25 million. We can certainly finance that very easily, and we can even finance it with whatever use if we lease that land on the river there where the sewer plant is. So I would be very much in favor of moving it. If we had a good use there, we could make some money on it. I'd like to see that happen.
I generally agree. I think that there's always a good reason to talk with your neighbors, talk with the other governments and see if there are efficiencies. I tend to agree with Brian that being rated is not the best way to play nice with your neighbors. I generally agree with Shay that all things being equal, it would be nice to have that plant off the river. But just as with FP&L, I don't think starting by giving things away, the good businesses we have giving away is never a good idea. And just quickly, I'd be opposed to the first dime of transactional attorneys and consultants on the issue. We're all adults. We can talk among ourselves and try and figure out what's best for everyone.
Thank you. I'll now take any questions from the floor. If any members have any, raise your hand. I'll pass you the mic. And if not, I'll, B?
I made note of it and you didn't read it.
Well, I'm not reading any notes that make personal attacks to the council members.
Just for his benefit,
Okay.
some
Right.
I followed the law with his campaign literature. He's not done the disclaimer.
Right. I just felt that that was not germane to the topic here.
Well, I think if he's a candidate, he should do this properly.
Okay, so noted. So noted. Yes, Dr. Faraday, would you like to ask something? I'll pass you the mic here.
Question for the candidates. I have a question for the candidates. As a city council member, you have a fiduciary responsibility to the city, to the citizens who elected you. There's also a separate corporation, the city electric utility. The city council is the board of that electric utility and gives you a separate fiduciary responsibility. How are you meeting your fiduciary responsibility as a member of that board of directors of the electric utility if you were only giving a referendum to 39% of the ratepayers, 100% of the ratepayers, not city taxpayers that pay for the utility? And how are you meeting your fiduciary responsibility as a board member if you are not going for the sale and continuing to enslave the outside customers, ratepayers, for $4.5 million annually to be paid to the city to support the budget. That $4.5 million is exactly what your shortfall is. Sorry.
Pass this to Nick.
Thank you, Doctor. It's an intriguing question. As an attorney myself, I'm very much aware of conflicts of interest and things of that nature. And you and I spoke briefly about this at the beginning. The thought that has occurred to me between the two times we've talked is that I think you might be using fiduciary duty in the wrong way. I think when and I'll be happy to talk with you afterwards, but we have a representative of FP&L here. The board of directors of FP&L doesn't have a fiduciary duty to its end users. It has a fiduciary duty to its stockholders.
You know, this is kind of a curious question, because I did oppose the partial sale, which would have liberated the outside customers last year. I'm very surprised that none of those customers got on board with this idea. I guess I have no other conclusion that they enjoy being on Vero Beach Electric. Good grief, I mean, quite seriously, if you could have been there already, then why didn't you jump on board? We've got the All Requirements Project, which might take another 3 years. Don't you guys want to get off this thing? I'd love to have you guys go your way. I'd love to have the political angst between the county and the city end. You know, anything I can do to get you guys off the system, we'll try as hard as we can.
Certainly, the county customers need to be given an opportunity to get out of the Vero Beach City utility. But to say that the county customers are somehow entitled to a vote on what the city has, on city property is just not accurate. They aren't entitled to a vote. I'm not entitled to a vote. I drive a Jeep. I'm not entitled to a vote on what that corporation does just because I'm an end user. I'm not entitled to have FP&L service. I'm not entitled to tell FP&L whether they can sell or buy a utility system. I think that the county and the county residents certainly have the ability to exercise influence, and you've done that. And you do that, and the county residents have done that this year, and the county taxpayers set the 3 that they want up over in one table and the other 4 down here. I mean, you've done things to exercise your rights.
Well, it's just a sad thing that the county people don't have a say, and they are definitely involved in what's going on directly, but reality is reality, and I don't know what else to say about that. I'm just hoping that when the referendum, or if the referendum goes through, that from there the better choices are made, and it all works out for everybody.
To say that definitely representing all the ratepayers of our electric utility, and have pushed for the last 2 years to move forward with this sale with FP&L for the good of all of the ratepayers. There is a difficulty with the referendum, one of the reasons I don't support one this time. And as far as the partial sale goes, what Mr. Kramer failed to say is that with a partial sale, the city would still be trying to make up that $4.5 million, because we would lose 60% of our revenues, but we're not going to lose 60% of the expenses at the same time.
That's right. Yes.
Good point. And Steve, I understand your concern and your frustration. Unfortunately, this is an area of the law that is unfair to most of the citizens. The system is owned by the city of Vero Beach, and therefore, under the law, only the residents of Vero Beach can vote on the referendum. But if I had my way, we'd be out of this system, and everyone could vote, and you wouldn't have to vote, because we'd all be getting our electricity through FP&L. But I want to go back just a minute to what I said in my opening statement about a member of the council upholding the public trust when he or she is voted into office. And we heard Mr. Kramer talk about all the things that he's done this last 2 years. We talked about just recently about his efforts to have a partial sale of the system. In other words, to let those ratepayers who live outside the city enjoy the benefit of a lower rate that FP&L customers are going to get, and yet subject the voters, the people who elected him to do the public will, they're going to pay the higher rate. Now, how fair is that? I think it's most unfair, and I think it's most violation of public trust.
Thank you. Did you want to? I'll give each council member 1 minute to wrap up. Okay?
Start at the other end.
Okay, we'll start with Nick.
Just very briefly, I've spent my entire professional career trying to unwind bad deals that people have gotten themselves into. Specifically, people who have made investments through retail brokerages, Merrill Lynch, UBS, and so forth. It's what I do, it's where my heart is, it's where my brain is. I want to, I've seen the sales pitches from these companies over and over and over again. I worked for the SEC where we tried to temper that marketplace enthusiasm. All I'm hearing from FPL is a sales pitch. And I am resisting that sales pitch. Don't do the deal. It doesn't help anyone. The benefits are illusory and the detriments are certain.
I definitely want to thank you all for having us here. Been kind of an interesting experience. I didn't expect to have anybody here that I was going to be swaying one way or the other. I think everybody here has pretty much made up their mind on this issue. I am quite pleasantly surprised that people attack me on the partial sale idea, especially since I do have a number of professional engineers that I have talked this through with. Certainly if City Council wants to talk it over, I would be more than willing to talk this over in an official forum. However, I would quite assure you that that's pretty much politics and they really don't want to get into the mechanics of it. But in any case, I want to thank the Taxpayers Union for having this, or Taxpayers Association for having this, this luncheon, and thank you again.
I served on the City Council for 2 years. During that 2 years, we invited FP&L to the table. During that 2 years, I supported an open public discussion on what we should do with the electric utility. During that 2 years, the public, there was a change on City Council with respect to how they treated the public, and the public was allowed to come and express themselves without restraint, without time limits. I've now been off the City Council for 1 year, and what you've seen is a slide back. You saw a couple of meetings ago where one council member was abusive, rude. It's outrageous that we're sliding back. Thomas Jefferson was right. Eternal vigilance we need in order to maintain our freedoms. And we need council members that are willing to listen to the public, not dictate to the public. And we can listen to the public if we have a referendum on the sale.
I agree with that. The public has a say, and I would like to thank the Taxpayers Association for having us out here today. It was my pleasure to be here. I strongly believe that education to our citizens is important and is the key. All of you here are probably very educated about the issues and are aware of what choices to make. To continue in that process is very important, and also to let others know that aren't so educated to get that way. I do believe that the citizens of this town, there's other people that are able to read the referendum with clear cognitive capabilities on knowledge of exactly what it says, and that is important. And to not be to have the determination to continue to go out and learn about the issues and to vote. A lot of people have become lackadaisical in the issue.
As I said, we have gone forward with this transaction with the most transparency. Every document we have received at council concerning the sale is online. All the Finance Commission meetings, Utility Commission meetings have been televised. Their minutes and notes are online for you to review. It's been a very open process. It's time, let's secure the financial future for the city. Let's bring the lowest electric rates to our community. Let's revise our pension plan, revise the benefits, employee benefits, and demand performance-based management in our city for a strong Vero Beach.
Thank you, and thank you to the Taxpayers Association, Mary Beth, Glenn Herron for running this meeting. This is a great organization. You do a tremendous public service, and it was very fun and educational being a part of this candidates forum. I want to thank Representative Mayfield for her fine talk on the proposed amendments, and also Bob Solari for his information. And I would just like to encourage all of you to vote, whether you're a city resident or a county resident. Make sure, I'm sure you are registered to vote, but do go out and vote. For the city voters, please consider my candidacy. I need your vote. I look forward to representing you on the city council, and if you make me your city councilman, I will not violate your public trust. I will listen to you, and I'll carry out the decisions for the city of Vero Beach for your best future. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very eloquent closing. Very nice. Give a round of applause to all of our candidates. It's an honor to serve in a very difficult campaign. And I'll turn the mic over to President Glenn Herron. Some final words. And I'm sure that the candidates might be available after the meeting for a personal one-on-one if you so desire. Here's Glenn.
Again, a round of applause for all the candidates standing here. The next meeting of the taxpayers is November 14th. It's the second Wednesday, and we are going to have what we'll call a State of the Union. That'll be after the elections, and we'll have probably the mayor and chairman of the county commissioner and other elected officials who in those positions to come and talk to us about their city government. So with that, the meeting is adjourned, and if you want to stay around and ask the candidates some questions, please feel free to do so. Thank you very much.